Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 1 o'clock, Tuesday, June 17th. Welcome to our regular council meeting. We have Mayor Holmes joining us by Zoom. Can I please get an approval of our agenda today? Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Barkwall, all in favor. And I did forget to ask if there was any addition of late items. No, okay, I didn't think so. All right. And Councillor Betts will be joining us by Zoom at some point as well. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. Does anybody have anything that they would like to remove from the consent agenda at all? I will remove item I, which is a letter from the Trail of the Okanagan Society. And corporate officer, that will go down to 11.1. Okay. Okay, can I get an approval of our consent agenda, please? Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Barkwall, all in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, on to the mayor's report. So I will have a deputy mayor's report. Good afternoon. As I mentioned, Mayor Holmes is joining us via Zoom. At the end of May, Councillor Barkwall and I traveled to Ottawa for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities annual conference, where more than 2,000 mayors and councillors from across the country gathered to discuss local government matters. The theme this year was Stronger Together. Following the recent federal election, the message was clear that we need to work together as communities, as provinces, and as a nation if we want to tackle global uncertainties, particularly around tariff hikes by the United States. We heard from Prime Minister Mark Carney, who spoke about building more affordable homes, reducing development cost charges, which are DCCs, creating national projects, and improving public safety. However, at the time of the conference, the newly elected Liberal government had not tabled its budget. So the Prime Minister did not provide details on how these initiatives or how they would look or what it would mean exactly for local governments. We heard from Conservative Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman, who spoke about the high cost of living, reducing red tape, bringing down the cost of DCCs, bail reform, and restoring consensus on immigration. While she was critical of the Liberals, she did emphasize a need to work together on national sovereignty. We also heard from NDP MP Gord Johns, who represents a riding on the island, and he argued for an increase in federal government infrastructure funding for local governments, specifically, quote, more funds for recreation centers like pools. And he warned that reducing development cost charges cannot leave municipalities in the hole. Finally, we heard from Green Party leader MP Elizabeth May, and she spoke about working together across all party platforms for the betterment of all Canadians. In addition to speakers, we also participated in a variety of seminars and workshops, including one on reducing red tape and improving government efficiency. The City of Kelowna is piloting a program that uses AI to help with resident inquiries. We learned about the challenges and opportunities that they've had and about how it's critical that local governments have a plan in place before implementing any kind of AI. I attended 2 seminars on rural infrastructure funding where I provided feedback on how the federal government grants can be improved. This includes making funding programs more predictable, reducing specific qualifications so that local governments can decide how they want to spend money, and to provide a timely response so that municipalities aren't left hanging for months. I also shared Summerland's frustrating experience of applying for a grant for our recreation center, and I asked for a clear definition of rural so that communities like Summerland don't get left behind. Unlike UBCM, where municipal representatives meet with provincial ministers, FCM is structured slightly differently. We get to participate in discussions with FCM representatives who lobby the federal government on our behalf. And from our region, which is the Southern Interior Local Government Association, the BC caucus, which included myself and Richard, we elected Salmon Arm Councillor Louise Wallace-Richmond, and she will serve on the FCM board. While we are a very, sorry, just missed a spot there. Overall, I found the conference to be informative and worthwhile. I learned how important it is that we work together and how I can count on others from across the country to help. And while we are very diverse, I spoke with other councillors whose communities face many of the same issues. And we talked about the need for coordination with the federal government and how that's crucial. Our colleagues from BC and across the country shared creative solutions and demonstrated a commitment to our constituents. And we all showed that we're doing the very best that we can. I also found a much needed renewed sense of optimism, responsibility, and pride in our country. And I realized that nation building really does start at the local level. I wanted to give a special thank you to our Member of Parliament, Dan Elbis, for taking time to give me and Councillor Barkwell a fascinating tour of Parliament. My favorite part was walking down the halls with the portraits of our past prime ministers. They're all uniquely painted to capture the time period and their personalities. Finally, back in Summerland, I participated in the Giants Head Run on June 7th, along with 600 others. It was so much fun to be among a sea of purple shirts. A huge thank you goes to all the volunteers and the staff, the business sponsors, and all those who cheered us on along the way. It's a great way to build our community spirit and to kick off the summer season. Thank you, and I apologize that was a wee bit long today, but I did have lots to say. Over to the CAO for his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So construction continues at the Wharton Street Infrastructure Project with stormwater pipes along Henry now installed and the installation of pipes and drainage at the Wharton and Henry intersection being worked on. New electrical boxes, foundations for new light posts and underground conduits are being installed. In the coming weeks, the project will begin the work on the intersection improvements planned for Main Street and Victoria. Because of the increased use of other parking areas, we continue to enforce the parking rules, including the 2-hour limit in key areas. This ensures that we have a turnover of available parking stalls. We know that parking and movement in the area is a challenge, so we have also produced and shared a parking options map with the business community and online for the public. Please keep an eye on Facebook, our website, and the dedicated project webpage for more information and for any changes to parking or traffic movement. We might need to move to early season water restrictions for residents. Most of our reservoirs filled this spring, which is a good thing, but what is unusual is they have already stopped spilling, which means unless we get a lot more rain up in the headwaters soon, we are now using that stored water. We are still looking at our options and working with the province on a couple of questions, but likely we will need to move to level 2 water restrictions in the next week or so. This would mean residential sprinklers and residential underground irrigation can only be used twice a week between midnight and 6 a.m. based on your address. Micro irrigation, drip irrigation, or a hose with a shutoff nozzle to water trees, shrubs, or vegetables would still be permitted at any time on any day under stage 2. If we need to move to further water restrictions, we will use Facebook and the website to communicate the information and possibly Voyant alert. Since 2022, Council has had a published priority to explore a hotel tax for Summerland. This 3% tax would be paid by the traveling public on overnight accommodations, including Airbnb and other online platforms for in-home temporary accommodation. We're having a public information session for tourism stakeholders to learn more about how we are working with Destination Summerland to use those funds for marketing and supporting the visitor economy, including product development and other services. This session will be at the George Riga Arts and Cultural Center on June 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. and will be a drop-in format during that time with a short presentation at 6 p.m. With that, I conclude my report.
Okay, thank you for your report. Council, do you have any questions for our CAO? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to delegations. And we have Melissa Taylor here from the Summerland Minor Baseball Association. Welcome, Melissa. Just be sure to turn on the microphone.
All right. Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and Council. Thank you for having me once again. Today I'm here to officially request the renaming of Field 2 to Field 96 at Living Memorial Park. Since we last spoke, you are aware that we were awarded the Blue Jays grant and were able to learn this news as a community with several hundred people in attendance, as well as Councillors Barkwell and Betts. So thank you for your attendance and words on those days. The public outpouring of support and excitement has been and continues to be profound. I reviewed policy 100.15 on park and trail naming. While I don't believe it speaks specifically to renaming a field within a park, I am aware that you must undertake careful deliberation to satisfy your responsibilities as mayor and council, and I appreciate that this isn't the most simplest of asks. When I first came to see you last October, I could hardly see my way out of grief. We were somehow putting together an application to the Jays, providing my family with hope that we could create something meaningful from an unspeakable tragedy. Field 96 was also framed as a project that was intended to show the youth of Summerland that they are valued, loved, and invested in. As the months have gone on, the Field 96 project has evolved into its own brand. You have probably seen the blue and white shirts and the blue wristbands around the town. When I was speaking at the Jays announcement party, I looked around at all the families in attendance and their young kids who were just bursting with excitement. The awe of hearing that their town and their baseball program was going to be called out on live TV at a Jays game was almost too much. If I were to ask them, what does the Field 96 project mean? Not one of them would say anything about my family. They would tell you it means that Summerland is getting a brand new amazing field and they can't wait to play on it. The older kids would tell you that they are going to feel so proud to show up at their field and to host other teams and to be able to run without having to guard for the uneven surfaces, maybe even get a few more wins. Our association president will tell you that Field 96 makes him so proud to be a Summerlander, as it shows the strength, resilience, and power of the community when we work together. At Action Fest this year, a young man bought a Field 96 shirt for him and his wife. He said to us, "I'm so excited about this field. One day I'm going to have kids and they are going to play on Field 96. It was in that moment that I really knew how much Field 96 had evolved from a seed of tragedy into a story of hope, that it had moved from a grieving family's idea into a community-wide vision filled up with a collection of individual hopes and dreams. When Living Memorial Park was established in 1947, it began with the seed of loss, which was turned into a beautiful set of fields for the community to create memories and play ball. Over the years, the park simply became the baseball fields on Snow Avenue, and the rich origin story faded a long time ago, while the intent of the field to be a cornerstone of living memories continues strong to this day. The Field 96 project has also seen a similar evolution. Field 96 is a mosaic of stories, hopes, and dreams of the people who play, spectate, and have memories there. The revitalization of this field is a vision that we can all see collectively. It's also made up of individual stories. It's a young boy imagining his home run on Field 96, a U18 player getting to play their last year of baseball on a field of dreams. It's a mom bringing her daughter back to the field that Grandpa used to play on, or a young man who wants to be a dad and sees himself coaching his future child on that team, on that field. And yes, there's a group of us who know that 96 also represents our Hendricks. It is one piece of the large, beautiful mosaic that continues to form around this project, And like the name of Living Memorial Park, the specific knowledge about the seed of Field 96 will fade, while the legacy of having a state-of-the-art field of dreams for our youth will stand the test of time. The Field 96 project is not an in memoriam. It is a movement that has captured the minds and hearts of Summerlanders. We've seen our baseball program grow exponentially this season and expect it to continue. By renaming Field 2 to Field 96, we are reflecting a moment in time when we came together as individuals, families, association, companies, corporation, and government to needed project in our community. I want to leave you with some words that I keep hearing: community, health, wellness, protection, sport, family, friendship, pride, love, Summerland. That's what Field 96 is.
Thank you, Melissa. Very well said. Council, do you have any questions for Melissa at all? We are going to be discussing this coming up. It's the first item on our agenda after this section.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. We now move on to the public comment opportunity. We have 15 minutes. Would anybody like to comment on any of our business items? Nope, seeing none, and I don't have anybody registered, so we will move on. So our first item up for business, 9.1, Summerland Minor Baseball Association matching grant funding and field renaming request. So that's over to, Dave, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the report before council touches on 3 different discussion points, which will be presented by 3 different staff members today. I'll summarize the financial implications of matching the Blue Jays grant. Lori's going to touch on the signage, and Dana will provide an overview on the required license of occupation. So in terms of the matching grant, on February 11th, council did commit up to $250,000 of matching funds should Summerland Minor Baseball Association's application to the Blue Jays grant be successful. However, at that time of making that commitment, there was no funding source identified. And as we heard today, Summerland Minor Baseball has been successful in obtaining a $185,000 grant. So the report lays out 3 funding sources that are available to fund the district's portion of our matching funds. The first is to utilize the land sale reserve. Now, however, as the report notes, the majority of the available funds in that reserve have been earmarked by council for tourism initiatives. So it's not being recommended to utilize that source. The second funding source is the electrical capital reserve, which does have sufficient funds and can be utilized to cover the lighting components of this project. The third funding source is to eliminate current projects from the 5-year capital plan and use the funding sources allocated to those projects to cover our portion. So staff is recommending that 2 projects be eliminated from the 5-year financial plan, those being the natural areas management strategy and the urban forest strategy. And in addition, allocating $100,000 from the electric capital reserve. So should council have any questions around our share of funding, I can happily answer those at this point in time. If not, I can turn the conversation over to Dana to discuss the license of occupation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen and then Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Maybe not through our Director of Finance, but maybe our Director of Utilities, 100,000 allocated from our electrical capital reserve. Just want to run this one by you. Have we talked to IBEW? Is there an opportunity to talk to IBEW? We have our own technicians, our own qualified people, our own equipment. could this be a joint venture with IBEW? That they contribute the money, we contribute the labor? Possibly, because I mean, most of the people that work up at our electrical department have all got young children. Some of them that were very involved and played baseball. I'm just curious, is there an opportunity here? Is it worth a conversation?
Thank you, Councillor. Through Deputy Mayor Schreiner. We haven't had that discussion with them. I could bring it up with IBEW. I don't know if they have budget for that sort of stuff, or if they provide any community contributions for stuff going on where their members are working. I can bring it up with them. One or two members may be interested in some volunteer hours out there. I know there's some of the guys playing ball, so they may want to do that on a personal level. But as far as the union IBEW, can bring it up with them. But of course, don't know the answer to that. So all we can do is pose the question.
And just to follow up, I'm not opposed to the $100,000 coming out of the electrical. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just looking at alternatives. And IBEW, this is such a wonderful movement. IBEW might want to be part of it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Barkwell?
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I'd just like to know some more details about these 4 items that are to be considered as being removed in order to fund this project, which and to sort of decide between them. And could we talk the Memorial Park band shell enclosure? I presume that's just improvements to the band shell. It's getting old. It's, can we, more particular, why don't we remove the entire amount of the natural areas management strategy and urban forest strategy instead of, because if you take out the largest portion of it, you may as well scrap the whole thing. And I don't even know what those ones are about, but they must be holdovers, capital projects that were never done and still there. Can you sort of give us more information about them?
So through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Barkwell, the resolution is to remove both of those projects in their entirety. In terms of the projects themselves, I'm probably not the best person to speak to them, but they have been in our capital plans for numerous years. We've been having some internal conversations, and these are kind of holdover projects from previous employees. So the actual details around those projects are a little unclear in terms of what would be actually done. Hence why we are putting those 2 projects forward in terms of removing them.
I seem to recall in the past discussions of these 2 items, and you're right, they have been kind of kicked down the road. I'm thinking maybe if we did, put them off for now, there might be grants for an urban forest strategy at some point, because that to me kind of falls under climate change umbrella as well. So that's just something to consider. We have quite a few management plans and strategies right now, so I don't think it would be too bad if these ones got postponed for a couple of years. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I guess I don't think there'd be any opposition to canceling those projects, but I don't understand quite the resolution. When it's 85,000 be allocated by removing the natural areas management strategy, 60,000. Is that, and natural areas strategy manage, and then it goes urban forest strategy, 75,000. That's a total of 135,000. So how does that doesn't add up for me? That the electrical capital reserve, 100,000, and 85,000 be allocated by removing, so but you're removing 135,000. So we are scrapping the whole thing, and then we'll wind up with 35, $50,000 room for other things.
Yeah. Because we're dealing with two different funds, the electric utility, of course, can only pay for electrical capital, and then the general fund can only pay for general projects. Just by removing one of those projects didn't give us enough money to cover the general fund portion, hence why we're proposing to eliminate two of them. It will generate leftover funds in one of those reserves, as you mentioned, about $50,000, which apparently may be used on a MobiMat, as I heard today. So, but that conversation will be had at a later date.
Yes, earlier in the committee, the whole meeting, we did discuss that there would be a little bit of surplus here and the potential to use that for a MobiMat, which I believe we will discuss as soon as we've finished the items on right in front of us.
Okay, so now I see what that
Yes.
conversation was about this morning, yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any more questions about the funding aspect for, Mayor Holmes, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't find my raise hand button. So I was just wondering if, natural areas management strategy to urban forest strategy, if those could potentially be funded by grant funding at some point. I'm just wondering if we could kind of keep them there, but just have it pending on grant funding. So we remove them from, for this purposes, but not just throw them away.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. CAO, is that, would that be okay then if we just put them in a holding pattern for now?
Yeah, I think the way our director of finance would do it for budget purposes, he's just working on a motion right now, but I think what we would do is we would still keep them if council wants to do the way the mayor's proposing, is we would still have those listed in that capital plan, but the source of the funding would be sourced against grant to be determined. Yeah, so it would only proceed if we got grant for those two projects, if they proceed with the motion as written.
Okay, and then would you like that motion now that we discussed earlier, or would you like that at the end to allocate the leftover funds that will be generated here? Go ahead, Corporate Officer.
So I'll put it on the screen, but I think we can incorporate it all into one motion, so it will have a third part to it. And we'll
And just for Mayor Holmes, this morning during committee of the whole, when we were going through the strategic plan, we discussed when we were talking about waterfront, putting in a MobiMat at Peach Orchard Park. And we were given a rough estimate of about $15,000 for that. We're putting it in the summer. And so our CAO had suggested that that funding could come out of this extra bit that will be left over here. So Kendra's just going to draft a motion for us. Oh, Councillor Patton, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do agree that that we utilize the balance from the natural areas and urban forest strategy be used for a MobiMat at Rotary Beach. And my suggestion would be the shortest distance would be from the F dock to the paved sidewalk at Rotary Beach. But I will let our corporate officer do the fine wording for us. Thank you.
Councillor Barkwell.
I think we talked about MobiMats in the end, one so you can get into the water and one so you can get to the dock. And I remember, because this is an issue I've been following, I think it was $20,000 was originally in the budget for a MobiMat into the water. Maybe I think the 50,000 will cover whatever it takes, I think, to have one of each.
We're just trying to get multiple things done at once. Mayor Holmes, did you have any questions while we're waiting? No? Okay. You need 2 minutes? Oh. Okay. Just taking a moment here while we get the wording up on the screen. Do you want to move on to that? Okay. One at a time? Okay, okay. There we go.
To the deputy mayor, it would just be the number 1 with the red, just ignore the 2, 3, 4. Those can be dealt with in the next
Okay, we'll
part.
deal with those ones after. Okay. So again, council, we're just looking at number 1. And do you want us to vote on that first? Yes. Okay.
It would need to be moved and then seconded and then.
Okay.
voted on, yeah.
So council, once you've had the opportunity to read number 1, does somebody want to bring that forward? Councillor Patton, do you have a seconder? Councillor Beek? Okay. Just. Okay, again, we're just taking a moment to read through this. Councillor Barkwell, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm trying to read it. I think it says 20,000, but we don't know if that will be enough. Why don't we just say the additional funds be used for the Moby mats? We haven't moved this yet, have we?
Yeah, we do. We've had a mover and a seconder. Councillor Beek, go ahead.
I'll make that amendment to be more general in nature for the money to come from that savings, and that it be for Moby mats, make it plural.
Okay, Kendra, do we vote on the amendment? Okay, so Councillor Pete put forward an amendment. Okay, so we're just voting on the amendment. So in red there, we're just rewording that to give a bit more flexibility.
Amendment.
Sorry, Mayor Holmes, did you have something?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're voting on the amendment. All in favor? Great, that carries. Okay. So any further discussion on the resolution? Sorry, the motion presented? Nope. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Great, that's carried unanimously. Okay. So moving on to number 2. Lori, is this your section? Oh,
I think we're going to bypass number 2 for now and move on to motion number 3.
Okay.
To talk about the license of occupation.
perfect. Okay.
And then Lori can speak together to items number 2 and 4.
Okay.
So currently the SMBA is authorized to use the fields at Living Memorial Park through seasonal facility rental agreements. These agreements are just used to book the fields for certain dates and times and to provide terms and conditions for the use of those fields, but they don't give the SMBA any authority to make improvements to district property. In order to provide them with the authority to arrange for the improvements on district property and to give them the authority to enter into contracts with contractors for the work, we would need to enter into some sort of agreement with them to provide them with that authority. And this will help ensure that the improvements are constructed to District of Summerland standards and will serve to mitigate and transfer risk for us. We therefore propose entering into a license of occupation agreement with SMBA for the duration of construction. So a license of occupation agreement will allow for some flexibility for the district, providing terms and conditions while the final deliverables of the improvements are still unknown, and leaving the responsibility for the scope of improvements with SMBA. A license of occupation will allow the district to have arm's length oversight of the work. We'd be able to approve any work before it proceeds, receive regular updates and information from them about the work, inspect the work as it's happening, and to stop the work if required. The license would outline the roles of both parties and provide the terms and conditions of the arrangements, including minimum requirements for their contractors. And it would address things like liability, indemnity, insurance, minimum work standards, and warranty requirements. We don't recommend entering into a contract with SMBA as a general contractor, as the scope of work will depend on the available budget and will change as SMBA continues to receive donations. This would also shift more risk to the district because it would kind of become our project. Additionally, we don't recommend entering into contracts on SMBA's behalf directly with their contractors, as again, this would shift more risk to the district and it would also take considerable staff time and resources. Did anyone have any questions about the proposed agreement?
Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dana. So A license of occupation is a timed license. So this would end at the time of the field remediation?
Yeah, so I think tentatively we had discussed with SMBA, and just let me pull up my notes here. Doing the license to commence in July 2025 and expire in July 2026 to allow them the opportunity to complete improvements this fall and then also in early 2026. And if it needed to be extended because they were able to get more funding, we would build in the opportunity to extend for an additional year. With the idea that once they're done construction, the purpose of the license of occupation would be complete.
Thank you.
Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. More of a comment than a question. I think the opportunity to have the lease license of occupation is both advantageous to the baseball organization and to the Summerland district because it lays it out. There won't be any questions. It'll make a better working relationships. And I think the opportunity to do this together is absolutely amazing. So I think this is the way to go.
Good. Mayor Holmes, anything to add? No? Okay. Any further comments? Councillor Peak, do you just want to turn your mic off?
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Okay, so if there's no further questions then, we're looking at number 3. Does somebody want to bring that forward? Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Patton. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Great, that carries. Okay, so back up to number 2. Go ahead, Lori.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Trainer. The terms of the agreement from the Jays Care Foundation and contribution of $185,000 requires on-site recognition through permanent signage displaying the Jays Care Foundation Field of Dreams logo and or the Toronto Blue Jays logo. So staff would just like to ensure council supports a corporate sign at the field through a resolution as outlined above. And I'd just also like to highlight another term and condition of the grant is a confirmed field maintenance plan, which we're currently working on with Summerland Minor Baseball Association, but we anticipate it'll be very similar to the shared maintenance that we do up at those fields. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Oh, Mayor Holmes, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a little leery of the permanent sign. I don't even really know what a permanent sign is supposed to mean. But I think if there's going to be a permanent sign recognizing the Jays Foundation's contribution, we also have to have a permanent sign up there recognizing the original people who created that park and that the veterans who came back and built the original thing. You can't have recognition for, a new group without recognizing. It needs better recognition for the veterans, I think. So maybe we could work with the Legion and have some of the history of Living Memorial Park there with the recognition of the veterans who built it at the time. Because I can't see how you can recognize a new group without recognizing the original ones.
Lori, do we have, I should know this, but I don't, do we have a sign right now that talks about the history of the park? No? Okay, that's a really good idea, I think, to explain a little bit about the history of the park and why it's there and who originally built it and how it's evolving over time. Mayor Holmes, would that capture what you were requesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Mayor Holmes because what I had written down was that Memorial Park was donated in the honor of veterans. And what does a name change to an internal field in the park do for the veteran recognition of the service that they did for our country. So I have to agree with Mayor Holmes that it's a little deeper than just some signage.
So like an interpretive sign would work? Go ahead, Councillor Vanel.
I agree with Councillor Holmes and Councillor Patton, but also just a recommendation or suggestion that there's a lot of great photographs, I believe, at our museum showing the history of the Memorial Park. Baseball was a huge sport in after the war. We had teams here. We had teams here that were strictly just Japanese people that lived in Summerland. And it was a huge spectator draw back in the day, and that's why the bleachers were there. I think that, you know, an interpretive sign, maybe some historical photographs, and the Jace Foundation showing how this evolved over the years. And I just think it's a really good idea to incorporate that all.
Lori, is that something that we could do? And I guess you would need a budget for that as well.
Yeah, I think the mayor's suggestion of reaching out to the Legion to see if maybe there's a partnership on a particular sign, historical interpretive sign that we could work on together, we could look at, and then if there is a budget implication, we could come back to council to consider that piece. I guess my question would be, are we looking at two different signs? That was my assumption the way we were talking, but maybe after Councillor Van Elfen was talking, I wasn't sure if we wanted to combine signage and if that would be appropriate with the Blue Jays or not.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that, does the Jays Care Foundation require their own signage, or could it be part of a larger interpretive sign?
I'm not 100% sure, so I don't know if you want to ask SMBA regarding that, but my assumption would be that they would want a dedicated sign reflecting their contribution. But I don't think there would be, I think we could still look at doing an interpretive sign as an additional sign. Is that right?
Okay, CAO, do we need specifics for this motion, or I'm just wondering how we should do it? Because I think we all have the same intention.
Yeah, we're picking up what you're putting down, and I think the corporate officer has a bit of a draft motion here that she can share shortly.
We have so much.
Yeah, we're just trying to find a way to zoom it in maybe, or make the words bigger.
Okay, Mayor Holmes, we're just drafting an addition to this motion. I don't know if you can see that or not on the screen.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Okay, we're just reading over it. So Mayor Holmes has moved that.
I can read it if you like.
Yeah, go ahead if you
Chair.
could do that.
And that staff be directed to liaise with the Royal Canadian Legion Summerland branch on signage recognizing the origins of Living Memorial Park, and report back to council on potential budget implications during 2026 budget deliberations.
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Peak. Lori, does this give you good direction?
Yeah, thank you. And I think the intention with the Blue Jays signage would be on the field at the Ball Diamond, whereas this signage would be more incorporating the entire complex at the entrance.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. We probably should have done a sign like that a long time ago too. Okay, so we have the motion there. We've got a first and a seconder. Any further comments? Nope. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Great, that carries. Okay, and our final item is number 4, renaming Field 2 to Field 96. Go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, thank you. So Summerland Minor Baseball Association's delegation presentation and request to rename Field number 2 to Field 96 is at council's discretion. The District of Summerland has a park and trail naming policy, but there is no specific reference regarding naming a subsection within a park. It should also be noted that the district does not have a policy on memorials. The subject is a difficult one, as memorials can be a source of re-traumatization, and there should be consideration of equity of response should future similar requests be brought forward. Staff are looking for council direction on the field renaming request through a resolution. Thank you.
Okay, council, I'll start with Councillor Barkwell.
Staff is correct in that there can be sensitivities here. Burned into my memory is a previous council that wanted to sell some of the land around the park at one time. And what a kerfuffle that raised. That was probably the late 70s, early 80s. So maybe I'm the only one that remembers that. Not even Legionnaires would remember it. But it seems like a good idea. It's just the field. It's just, and you wonder why it's called the Living Memorial Park. It's for the living. And so Field 96 would make people question, why is it called Field 96, and bring back the story. So I think I'd like to see a resolution that says we propose it, but we bounce it off the Legion first, just to get their approval.
Any other thoughts? Councillor Patton and then Peak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree fully with Councillor Barkwell in regards to this. And I do believe that the Legion does and should have a say in any name changes that are contemplated for down at the Ball Diamonds.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I too feel that in consultation with the Legion, because this was a living memorial park dedicated to veterans, I think that consultation is necessary. And perhaps that they could have some recourse to the discussion and the motions that we are looking at, so they have a bit of background to it. That would be helpful. The change from Field 2 to Field 96 in terms of a label is important to the community. So I think the understanding through the Legion would be important.
Okay, I'll just quickly share my thoughts. I'm in support of renaming this. I think that, that park is a place to remember people and to play ball in their name and enjoy yourself. And I think that that's what they would want. So I think it keeps in the field of evolving, and I don't know. I think it works, but I think we do need to check with the Legion. I agree with that. So I think Kendra, our corporate officer, may be drafting an addition to
Momentarily.
Okay. So again, does anybody have any other thoughts about renaming? Mayor Holmes?
No, I agree with bouncing off the Legion.
Okay. Council, do we want to give our support pending what the Legion says, or do we just want to refer it to the Legion?
It's going to come back anyway.
Okay. So we have the motion up on the screen. Councillor Barkwell?
I'll move that as written on the screen.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Any final thoughts? No? So Lori, you can reach out? Okay, great. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we are moving on to 9.2, which is the BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement. And Dave is taking this one.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the District of Summerland's transit system is operated through BC Transit, and we annually sign an operating agreement with them for this service. The 2025-2026 operating agreement is in front of council today, and it is comparable to historical agreements. Overall, the agreement does reflect a $29,500 increase when we compare it to last year's agreement. And the primary reasons for this increase relate to just increased operating costs, which are fuel, vehicle maintenance, leasing fees, and insurance. So the district's overall 2025 budget for transit services is $282,500. Which is sufficient to ensure this service continues through the year. Thank you.
Council, any questions? No? Dave, I have one quick question. At what point would we ever discuss changing the bus or getting a new bus, a larger one? Is that something that BC Transit would bring to us, or would that be a council initiatives?
Oh, I wish Odessa was here. We have had conversations in the past through some public engagement. Like we have done public engagements in Summerland. They have been initiated by BC Transit. And through those public engagements, we have had increased services over the years. I think the last one we had an additional 900 hours that were added probably 3 or 4 years ago with a couple extra stops and those types of things, or not stops, but stop times. In terms of the buses themselves, I do know that council has heard from members of the public saying that the buses can be full and those types of things. And I do believe that Odessa, our manager of sustainability, has been dealing with transit on some of those questions, but I can't speak to them myself.
Okay, I was just wondering at what point we would consider or discuss that next year. Okay.
Yeah, it would be a budgetary item and it would need to go through transit as they are the ones that are procuring those buses and those leases.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. Okay, any final questions? Okay, can someone bring forward the motion? Councillor Pete. Oh, there she is. Oh, Jess, I just have a quick question for you. At what point in time, and I think it's probably next year, but would we discuss the possibility of getting a larger bus or the need to?
So in talking with BC Transit in the past, because this has come up in previous conversations and requests from the public, I believe it is up to us to go to BC Transit to request that. It is a bit of a lengthy process because they need to determine the availability of a larger bus, how long that would take in order to get to us at that point. So it could be a year plus potentially, depending on where we would stand within the wait list, but it would be up to us to go and initiate that.
And so we would look at numbers again next year and see whether it warrants a new bus. I mean, I just remember, Trevor, I think his name is Travis, our community bus driver, he came in and spoke to us about that and requested it. So I told him I would ask these questions. So I just wanted to clarify for myself that next year would probably be the time to do that.
I'm not aware if we have to do it during a certain period of the year, if it's aligned with budgetary, but I could also clarify with BC Transit and then pass that on for your knowledge and information. But as far as I've been made aware, we just have to reach out to them and then we would get that process started. So if council decides to go through at a budgetary period, then that could possibly be it.
Okay, thanks. If you would be able to just get a bit more information on with BC Transit, that'd be great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so do we have a mover and a seconder for this? Oh, do we have a seconder? Somebody? Councillor Patton? Okay, thank you. Seeing no further Mayor Holmes, go ahead.
I was just seconding and voting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkwell?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I don't suppose there's an answer to this question, but you know, at 282,000, it's nearly 2.5% of our tax revenue. And that's a big chunk of all the competing expenditures we have. I wonder what other communities spend on busing. And just kind of I think something I'm gonna have to keep an eye open for just to see.
Well, if we considered the free ridership thing, would that affect the numbers?
Dave, if we were to phase out free ridership eventually, would that affect our numbers? I guess that would supplement what we're spending.
Through the chair. Again, not my area of expertise, but I have heard when transit reports come to council and ridership and those types of things, ridership has increased since the free transit did come into play. Now, whether or not that's getting us to that point where all our buses are full, it probably plays into it. So, you know, if the free ridership was to go away, would we see a decline? I don't know. Potentially, but I can't answer that.
Okay, well, transit's something that we talk about a couple times a year, so we just have to continue to monitor it and see how our program's going and reevaluate it often. Keep asking questions. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the 2024 Statement of Financial Information, the SOFI report. Dave, this is yours as well.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. So as council is aware, municipalities are required to prepare a statement of financial information, which is commonly referred to as the SOFI, and we have to do this on an annual basis. The SOFI discloses detailed information that is not found in the district's audited financial statements. So information such as a schedule of severance agreements, of which there were no such agreements in 2024. A schedule of remuneration and expenses for employees whose gross salaries are over $75,000, and a schedule of suppliers, goods, and services. So in total, the district expended $54.3 million in 2024, and we had one less employee included on the over $75,000 wage disclosure, which resulted in a total of 59 employees on that list. So with council's approval, the 2024 SOFI will be submitted to the ministry prior to June 30th to meet the district's statutory reporting requirements. And that summarizes my report.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you. Through to our Director of Finance. Is this report also mandatory to be put in the paper? Publicized with names? No? Thank you.
Hey, does somebody want to bring this forward? Councillor Pete, can I get a seconder? Councillor Barkwell, any final comments? Not seeing none. I'll call the question. All in favor? Great, that's carried. Okay, moving on to 9.4, fees and charges, electrical rates and building permit fees, amendment bylaw number 2025-015. And that is Kendra.
Deputy Mayor Trainer. So before council's fees and charges amendment bylaw, which proposes amendments to Schedule A, electric rates, and Schedule E, building permit fees for its first three readings. The proposed changes to Schedule A, the electric fees, are in relation to the distributed generation fees. Fees and charges following previous council direction to adjust the produced energy rate from the residential rate to the wholesale rate, as well as the meter installation will also be billed at cost instead of a fixed rate to accommodate the different meter types that are now allowed. The proposed changes to Schedule E are to remove one fee charge, which is the electric plan review fee, and rebate, which is the mid-construction blower door rebate, as well as to add a fee rebate incentives for reaching the higher levels of the BC Zero Carbon Code, in addition to the BC Energy Step Code. So both the Director of Development Services and the Director of Utilities are here to answer any technical questions related to the schedules, and I can answer any general questions related to the fees and charges. So we're happy to take any if there is any from council.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To our Director of Corporate Services, I'm just wondering, we haven't had any discussion on the Zero Carbon Step Code. fee increase or decrease or any rebates have not come across the table for us to discuss. So my question being is, how did this 10% rebate for step 4 and 20% for step 5 come into play for the BC zero step code? The zero carbon step code. I understand the step code, but it's the zero carbon step code that we haven't discussed at all yet. Thank you.
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Patton, I'll defer that one to our Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Councillor Patton, through the chair. Because we only update the fees and charges bylaw every 6 months, and this is the opportunity to do it during the midway point of 2025. We did go a bit ahead of our committee and council discussion with this fee incentive change for the BC Carbon Code, and we did have engagement with both the Climate Action Committee as well as the Development Process Improvement Committee on this change, separately from making a mandatory requirement within our bylaw, our building bylaw. And both committees were supportive of at least the fee incentive as an added incentive for being included. So that's the reason why it's being proposed today. But you are correct. We haven't brought it forward to council yet as under separate report. We are planning on doing that in July. It's just in terms of timing. If we didn't make the change now in terms of the fees and charges, probably we'd have to wait until next January when we update the fees and charges bylaw again. So that's the reason for the reason for bringing it forward today.
Thank you, Brad. I do have a problem with it. For the fact is that it's being assumed that we are in favor of it. And I don't have any problem in holding off until January once it's gone through council. And maybe it's not something that council is privy to, like, or is agreeable to. And so I would really like to. I have no problem with the BC Energy Step Code. I know already we're at step 3. I have no issues with that, but I don't want to be having us talk about rebates in a bylaw that's going to come into effect when we haven't even had the discussions around the table. Thank you.
Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I don't know where I land on that too, but I do know I land on I don't like the process, and I don't think we should approve that.
Okay, would you like to make an amendment, or do you want to bring forward something different?
Deputy Mayor Councillor Patton, in this case, I would probably recommend that we just defer the bylaw, and then internally staff can talk about how we would bring that conversation forward to council, and then that would give me time to amend the bylaw to still allow Schedule A to be amended at the next meeting. So I would just defer consideration to the July 8th.
Defer this entire,
Yeah.
okay. We need a motion to defer? Okay, Councillor Peak, Councillor Patton, any further discussion? Nope. Okay, I'll call the question of deferral. Okay, that's carried. Okay, in our schedule next, we have a break, but
Through the
we deferred the whole thing.
Councillor Van Elfen, because it's part of the whole bylaw, rather than trying to give it the first 3 readings as amended, what staff will do is we'll take it away, and then we'll see how we can break it up and then bring that part back at the July 8th meeting.
Okay, so if it's okay with everyone, we'll just skip the break unless people need one. You need one? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. Peak. Any further comments? Is Mayor Holmes with us? Yeah. Mayor Holmes, you read through the entire thing front to back?
What thing?
The annual report.
All right. Okay. Sorry, I just got logged back on now.
Oh, it's all good. We just brought forward the 2024 annual report for consideration.
Yeah, I wrote the thing.
Oh, good. Okay. Great reading. And I like all the colors and the photos, which make it actually more interesting for the public to read. So it is actually a good document. Okay, seeing no comments, then I'll call a question. All in favor of considering and receiving? Great, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and 9.7 is the 2025 UBCM Minister Meeting requests. And that's over to Kendra as well.
So thank you again, Deputy Mayor Trainer. So again, the deadline to submit meeting requests for the provincial UBCM ministers during the upcoming convention is July 2nd, 2024. So we have received a variety of recommendations for ministers to meet with and topics to discuss, which have been included in the motion. Council may add or remove any of the suggestions. So they are on the screen. It is a bit hard to read. There is many of them. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or any direction from council on who to meet with and what to discuss.
So this list is pretty comprehensive. It looks really good. Council, do you have any additions or feedback? Councillor Peak and then Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. My suggestion is that we've received an email regarding commercial truckers not having a place to be able to pull over and have their necessary downtime to keep their logs in order. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity, since we will be going to the Ministry of Transportation, to ask them about whether they take in hand creating those kind of parking spaces for commercial transport traffic through communities.
Council, would you like to add that? Kendra, if we're adding anything or taking away anything, do it in red. Okay. So Councillor Peak would like to add a discussion about transport truck rest stations or stops. I see some discussion. Oh, Mayor Holmes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think on commercial truckers pulling over, before we start meeting with the minister, I'd like to get, maybe staff reaching out to the ministry staff about getting a better idea of what is the municipal responsibility in this, because I'm not clear at all on what the municipal responsibility is for providing commercial truckers opportunities to pull over at night. I was just wondering, so this list came out of the CEO, the corporate officer, and myself kind of brainstorming one day and to present to council today. So I'm just wondering if it'd be worthwhile for me just to go through them and talk about each one individually.
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, so the very first one, the premier, this was in light of, so it should be probably read youth mental health specifically and unhoused. And this specifically relates to some of the tragic events we've had regarding, around the trestle specifically. And it came out of a meeting we had with SD 67 on what we could be doing as a community. And knowing the premier's interest in this area and in the unhoused population and how we're seeing it increase here in Summerland, that we thought that would be a good discussion to have with the premier. Then the Ministry of Citizen Services, I was looking at other communities the size of Summerland, and there's a lot smaller communities than ours that have a Service BC center. And so this is just kind of continues on this kind of expectation that Summerland residents can just go into Penticton to access, public services, which if we're talking about building a community and being a complete community, that's not really acceptable when there's so much smaller communities out there that have service BC centers. I think it'd be worth meeting with the minister to say, why doesn't Summerland and get a better understanding of how they decide where these service BC centers are placed. The Ministry of Education, that would be in regard to the municipal hall property, and perhaps Giants Head School. That general discussion that we've had about how a property is being disposed, and how it's not always in the best, may not always be in the best interest of the community, which is a community building. Then Ministry of Environment, the gravel pit, I think it's worth keeping the pressure on that, and then also talking to the idea is, rather than keep knocking on the door of the Ministry of Mines regarding the gravel pit, we should be talking to the Ministry of Environment, who came out and opposed to it. And so the Ministry of Mines basically ignored the recommendation from the Ministry of Environment. So I think we should start taking a different approach of this and start talking to the Ministry of Environment about the gravel pit and what they do in situations like this where their own advice is ignored. And then while we're at it, we could revisit the old idea of connecting the provincial parks along the highway there. Ministry of Finance, that would be property tax transfer tax. So this is in relation to, rather than, when we talk about the revenue from farmlands that we're kind of where it's not necessarily fair for farming communities. One idea is that the property transfer tax, which aren't at a discounted rate, so the way property taxes are, transfer taxes aren't. They get the full, whatever it's worth, and so we could, make a proposal to the Ministry of Finance that municipalities should be sharing in some of those transfer taxes for farm properties, these expensive farm properties. We can talk about all these in details. Ministry of Health, I think we don't really know yet where the doctors and division is going to land on where to go the next steps for primary care. But I think we still have an advocacy role there. And so I think we should put in a request to meet with the minister with the thought that there might be a new proposal by September to try and get the ministry blessing that this is the right direction. Municipal affairs, that would be this is what we've talked to them about in the past, where expectations of small local governments to support affordable housing, how is it, we can't do the same kind of, we don't have the same capacity and resources to provide to attract affordable housing that larger cities have, for example. We've had this conversation in the past. Indigenous relations, this is, you may recall discussions we've had about, increasingly having to do assessments for, our trails, for example. And just, this is kind of a form of downloading to us. And so we should talk to the government about that. Ministry of Tourism, that would be the hotel tax. Ministry of Transportation, Highway 40, just follow up on the discussion I had with the minister last month. And the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship regarding the Source Water Protection Plan. And we could talk to BC Hydro again about our secondary power source, which we talked about last year. So that's kind of the whole full list that we came up with. And yeah, if you have any questions about any of them, just ask.
Thanks, Mayor Holmes. That's a really good list. I have one question. Would it be worthwhile, and I don't know which ministry, I would think municipal affairs, but to ask about what kind of granting programs they're going to be offering over the next while? Like we used to have rural grants, and then we got that one-time $4 million last year, the year before. If there's any ideas on what granting will look like over the next while, do you think that's worthwhile?
Well, my view is all of UBCM is going to be asking that. Right? Everybody wants to know that.
No, yeah, that's a good point.
But it's not really that
thinking because
specific.
we're rural, that we kind of, okay, well, if that is true, I'm sure we'll all be asking for money, which usually happens, but it would be interesting to find that out. Anybody else have any suggestions? Councillor Barkle?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the scope of the mental health one. I wonder if there's an opportunity to advocate for, I don't know what they call it, CAR 92 or something, where they have mental health workers working with the RCMP. And I think it's a program that everybody seems to recognize the value of, but it doesn't seem to be expanding and hasn't expanded to Summerland. And is it something we could sort of mention as something we would like to see? I think it's actually a money-saving concept where you're dealing with dealing with people with the appropriate professional rather than the expensive lease system.
Yeah, I think that could be included in the discussion.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, that list looks good. We put in the requests and then we kind of always throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes we get them and sometimes we don't. So I think that's, we always ask for more than we usually get, but this is great. Mayor Holmes, did you want to add anything further at all?
No, I think that's all I have. Anybody else have anything else?
Councillor Barkle?
Should we tell the province that we have a perfect location in our municipal hall for a Service BC Center? Where people could come up and
Upstairs?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so does somebody want to bring forward this resolution here?
So move.
Okay, Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Peak. Go ahead, Councillor Barkle, you just voting? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Great. So we will submit that, and we don't usually hear back until right before, right? Okay. Good. All right. Moving on to bylaws for adoption, financial plan 2025-2029 amendment bylaw. That's just for adoption. Can I have someone bring that forward? Councillor Patton, Councillor Peak, any further discussion? Nope, all in favor? Great, that's carried. And then section 11, which is items removed from the consent agenda. So I removed the letter from the Trail of the Okanogans. They have a couple requests in there, and so I just wanted to add something that they asked for. Where am I adding that again?
11:1.
No, I know, but where are we?
The deputy mayor, you'll add as part of the Rise and Report tonight, council will be confirming the resolution that the council and committee made. The deputy mayor intends to bring forward a motion to have a further amendment to the plan for the request that is identified in the correspondence.
Kendra's my second half of the brain. Okay, so we just leave that there for now then? Okay, and do we need a motion to accept that letter? Okay, so the Trail of the Okanogans asked that we just extend the designation of their trail all the way out to the northern boundary of Summerland. Right now in our trails or in our transportation master plan, it just goes it kind of ends partway down Garnet Valley. So they just wanted it officially in the plan that it goes all the way to the border. So we'll discuss that tonight, but that's why I brought that out. So can we just get a motion to accept that? Councillor Peak? Councillor Barkwell, all in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, so now we just need a resolution to close the meeting to the public. And this is for sections 91C, E, G, and I of the community charter. Councillor Peak, Councillor Patton, all in favor? Great, thank you.
Can I stay on or do I have to re-log on?
You can stay on, Mayor Holmes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. We only went over that 10 times.